you know, it's easy to see it, not because you have the lights on, you know, but you can only see in one little doorway where it looked like it was open space. You know, but now they just use this little corner over here. I think there's probably more stuff going on in the east. Wasn't that in the government awards? Yeah. Just a couple of years ago. But at the same time, they were showing that A7. Yes, EFS is not. Okay. It's in the link to this person. Okay.
It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Mr. Brown? Here. Mr. Beverly? Here. Mr. Fritz? Present. Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Behan? Here. And Mr. Hill? Here.
Next item will be motion to approve the agenda, and under new business, there'll be one addition, the 16th Street property lease agreement. I take a motion to approve that. Make motion to approve it. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Has everyone had a chance to look over the previous meetings minutes? If there are no additions or corrections, they'll stand approved as presented. Public comment. Anything saying? That was saying. We'll move on to the officer's report, chief report.
Well, good evening. As you might have noticed, I kind of reformatted our report here. If you don't like it, have any comments, additions, anything you don't want in there or do want in there, still feel free to let me know. I think it's makes it a little more comprehensive and for you guys to get a better chance to look over it and get around between meetings. And so I'm probably not going to read the whole thing to you, obviously, tonight. If there's any questions, I did want to point out a couple of the obvious things. Number one being the call volume. I did include at the back of my report on pages 10 and 11 in your packets last year's numbers. I'm currently doing what I do every year this time, and that's compiling all the data, how many transports, what type of transports we did, took transports by unit, every piece of information I can get, and I'll put it all in a big puzzle and give it to you. Hopefully I'll have that, should have that by next meeting. So you'll be able to see the graphs of average patient age, location. We still don't have a lot of great data on that because of the way our dispatch is set up. But the good news is that should have vastly improved. We should have some better information coming real soon with the Test County Communication Center. So we ended up with, let's see, 2020 is on page 11. So there's, you've got your big number there at the top, 7838, as compared to 7486. So was that around 400 calls higher than last year, despite the dips we had early on in the COVID pandemic. No big changes on any other numbers. Winter trips are held steady pretty much all year long, right around 100 per month. So we ended up with 99 in December and 1173 total for the year. So almost crested. Let's see, I didn't add those together, whatever that is. Getting up there pretty quick. I was looking at some old documents for Pettis County Ambulance District. In our first year, we projected to run 3,700 calls. So we're nipping on the heels of tripling that if you include Windsor, and more than double that with just Pettis County. So next item, go back to that page 5. We do have our online training software is getting set up right now. PAPR units have arrived. They were supposed to come with a bag, and we're still training some people on them, but we've got to still put those in service. They should be in the next few days. So we've got the training is ongoing right now. I actually completed that myself yesterday. It's pretty slick. We use the new training software for that. Works remarkably well. Very, very easy to use. And Justin Cross, our division chief training, has put out some videos on it already. So it's super, super easy, very, very user friendly. Let's see. We did, because of the addition of the Lucas devices, we've had to go back in and amend 2 different protocols for 2 different reasons. The first one, obviously, being cardiac arrest. Anytime we use that, we do have to have a standing order or protocol to be able to apply that device per Dr. Gustafson's standing orders. So all of that's been done. The cardiac arrest protocol has been updated for the use of Lucas device. And the other one is acute coronary syndrome. Basically, that would mean any kind of condition with your heart. You're having chest pain, or you're not, you don't rise to the EKG manifestation of it. So you may not have a STEMI, what's known as a STEMI, but you may be having other cardiac symptoms such as congestive heart failure or whatnot. Bothwell is in the process. They were pending as of this writing. I don't know if they've received a certificate, but they're very happy to be an acute heart attack ready certified hospital now. And basically what that means is if you've heard the terms level 3 cardiac center, level 3 trauma center, or level 1 or this or that, the acute heart attack ready certification is the equivalent of a level 3 cardiac center. So now we can, by state statute, we're allowed to take an ST elevation MI or a heart attack that's confirmed with EKG. We can actually go there and they can be administered medications and then transferred if need be to an interventional cardiac center. So it gives them a lot more options for what to do with these patients. It makes it easy for us if we've got somebody that's unstable and critical but has that MI going on. We can go straight there and get it taken care of, get them stabilized. It opens up a lot of doors, and we're really proud of Bothwell for jumping through a lot of hoops to get that certification. They had to meet a lot of different goals. Lori Whiteman, their CEO, sent me all of the requirements that they had to meet to get that certification. It was a pretty daunting list, so we're very proud of them and happy to see them getting that certification. And I put some information and some links. Well, obviously you can't click that one, but the link in the board packets online, you can actually click that link and get some more information if you're curious about that certification that's they received. Vehicle maintenance, we did have another deer strike. Unfortunately, it was another transit. Unfortunately, it was also on 52 highway. So I don't know what it is about that road. If there's a good news in this, they actually did come out and assess it today. I haven't got any numbers for it. They took pictures and looked at it today. It's primarily the front grille and maybe a little bit of the radiator. It's not near as bad as Medic 9 or Unit 9, I should say. But it was Unit 8. It's out of service. It's across the street. And it pretty well fried the front end grill, but it doesn't look to cause any major structural damage. So hopefully we'll have that back on the road here pretty soon. I've got mileages there for anybody who want actual numbers on those. No work accidents to report. We don't have any big utility or building issues, although I think Mr. Fritz might want to talk about some Windows issues. I think that's actually on the agenda. I did want to report to the board that we did, just in the nick of time, getting that generator installed with our ice storm. We lost power at least twice at headquarters and at least once at Station 2. All the generators performed flawlessly. We did have to reroute a few cables out at Station 2 because they weren't wired in directly to the generator, because I think some of them were add-on outlets. I don't know what the reason was, but it wasn't any big deal. Ryan got that taken care of right away. Across the street, they worked great. We didn't lose power for any time at all. Nobody even really knew it happened. So everything working wonderfully as it should. Other than some software updates, we're going to move on to page 7 there if there aren't any questions. The package you received prior to this board meeting did have a flyer in there for EMS Day at the Capitol. That was an automatic input from my end. It's not in the public packets tonight because it was actually from 2020, from last year. So we did go to that last year. I don't anticipate that happening this year. You never know. It's not until March, but oddly enough, they closed down the Capitol because of COVID the very next day after that last year. So I don't know if they'll be having it this year. If they do, it's a great thing, but otherwise that flyer is old news and you can just disregard that. There's been, as everyone knows, the Democrats been running a lot of articles on COVID, and sometimes they call and get a quote here and a quote there. So we've been mentioned several times in the newspaper. We haven't had any big stories or anything like that. That's kind of where we're at with the media stuff. Pettis County Joint Communications, we are, Danny Water has been coordinating some meetings with one of the software companies, Priority Dispatch, and we've been doing a lot of really intensive setup meetings regarding protocol, quality review of the calls, what types of calls we're going over every single type of call we respond to with a fine-tooth comb. Over the next few months, we're hoping to line that out to where it's really a seamless transition to that system. So I'm very happy to see those meetings going as well as they are, and pretty much they've invited all us to kind of stakeholders. Of course, we are, and then as well as our command staff who's familiar with any kind of problems or areas of concern, any areas we can improve communications with the PG. This doesn't roll off the tongue. The PCJC, Pettis County Joint Communications. I'll learn how to say that quickly. Replacements for 1 and 2 have ordered. Have not approved the work order yet, but they'll probably start that process coming this week. We're at right now. The other units that was ordered, I believe back in August or September, should be here. We're hoping the end of February. Things have been pushed out as they've been pushed out across the nation just because of COVID. They've probably added a few weeks on there, but it's nothing really, no major delays we're not anticipating. We did have another paramedic PRN position come open today, actually, and we're needing to fill some of those PRN positions of people who've left or taken other roles and transitioned to a PRN role. We had to fill a couple full-time spots that have been open for quite some time. I did want to mention a couple paramedics that have came back to us, call them the boomerangs. It's always a good place to come back to. Svetlana Shevchenko is changing her PRN status to full-time. That's happening right now. And paramedic Chris Palmer is changing from PRN to full-time status. So we welcome them back. Very little training there since they both worked here before. So not any real big problem at all getting them back up and running full-time. Also wanted to mention one of our paramedics, Jacob White. He was on his full-time status. He's changing. He is going to remain PRN, but he's taking one of the career paths that's available for paramedics as a critical care flight paramedic down in the Air Service of Ross. So we certainly wish him luck and a lot of safety on that job as he transitions into that. And we hope that he gets bored with it and comes back to us full time. So I did put a copy of the training schedule. This is nothing you need to study or anything. This is just a representation of, despite COVID's best efforts, Justin was able to get all of this training out. This is all classroom stuff. They were limited size, of course, just to keep the attendance down here to where we were at appropriate levels. But he was able to get a lot of required courses and everything we needed was done. So I certainly commend him on his efforts getting that done despite the pandemic's best effort. And that's continued on the next page. So as you can see, a lot of those are basic life support. Those are CPR classes and advanced life support. But there's also a lot of very important critical care updates and refreshers that we're giving throughout the year. So without anything further, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and take them.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, referring back to the change of this the pending status of hospital regarding heart attack register certification. Prior to that, in this great news, where would our district transport a patient to? Would it be Warrensburg?
No, per state statute, basically where the statute guides us is we have to take those patients to an interventional cardiac center. Because of the distance, we were able to take some of those patients. We've been able to take some of those patients, or had to take some of those patients to Rockwell, or in some rare circumstances up to Western Missouri, but most of them in Columbia, Kansas City. So at the end of the day, patient choice trumps all. You know, if we recommend that you go to a PCI center, which is basically where you go in and do a catheterization, put a stent in, and do interventional. Do any kind of interventional cardiology. If we recommend that, a patient says no, I want to go to Lawful, we absolutely go to Lawful. If they just prefer to go to Lawful, now they can do that, and we don't have to worry about running afoul of the state statutes or anything. But before that, we were kind of, our hands were a little more tied. So this opens up a lot of possibilities.
Thank you.
Sure.
Chief, I'm just curious. Do the ambulances that have hit the deer, are they running lights and sirens?
Oddly enough, no. I don't know if the deer here is coming when we're noisy and bright, but no, they've both been on return. One of them was coming up here to pick up a return trip back to Windsor, and the other one was returning from a transfer out of Golden Valley.
Over the years, have the ones that have been in a deer strike, have they had lights? And
I'm not aware of any ones that had lights on them. I don't know that it's a deterrent for those silly creatures. They, one would think they'd hear us coming and get out of the way. I know they have been when people have running those, but I believe all the ones we've struck here have been non-emergency situations. Thankfully.
We're not, technically, we're not supposed to run lights and sirens unless there's an emergency.
Right, yeah.
So they couldn't put it on when they're on 52.
The thought crossed my mind. No, unfortunately not. Unfortunately not.
Yes.
Chief, Fez County Joint Communications Group, is there any progress in personnel issue that was addressed at the last meeting?
They've made some progress as far as keeping people on. I couldn't speak as to how many. I do have a meeting with them next week. And we'll get an update on that. But yeah, there have been a couple of people who've been able to retain and keep on. So there's some good news coming.
And so do we have any idea the kickoff date?
Anticipating the software companies, and I don't speak for the joint communications as I'm just one part of that big puzzle, but we're anticipating the end of April.
End of April.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? If not, we'll move on to the CFO report.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to start off by letting you know we did get an administrative assistant hired. Her first day was yesterday. Her name's Katie Patrick. She's going to be formally introduced to you all at the next board meeting. Figured we'd give her a couple weeks to get settled in a little bit. I put the job out on Indeed before we left for Christmas. And when I came back after Christmas, we had 52 applicants. So I was pleasantly surprised by that. And we narrowed it down to 5 applicants. We interviewed about 10 or 12 virtually, and then we narrowed it down to 5 that we interviewed in person. And we had lots of great options. So it was actually kind of hard to narrow it down to 1. So that's a great problem to have, I think. My report starts on page 14. Sales tax receipts this month, $264,396.90. So that's about almost $7,000 higher than last year at this time. And we're about 2.69% higher from January of last year. Any questions on any of that? Page 15 is the bank balances on the 7th versus the 17th of December. And then I started adding the year differences. Is that helpful to you all? Do you want me to keep doing that? You want me to stop doing that?
I like it.
Okay. And the cash reserve chart. Page 16 is the cash reserve analysis. You'll notice that the budget numbers, of course, are different from 2020 to 2021. We updated for the new budget that you all approved last meeting. And our days in cash reserve went down about 18 days, which at the beginning of the year, we have a lot of big expenses, as you've seen. Our insurance is due, and a lot of those annual costs happen upfront in January. Any questions on either of those? Check register is on pages 17 through 20. You'll probably notice here, there's more details. We got that link set up between the bank, which allows all of that information to show up differently in the reports. So you can see each company's deposit and where that came from, as well as what went out, which you always could see. Any questions on the check register?
I think that was a good move, Jamie, to get those two put together like that.
Yes, it's very helpful for me. And we also set up an ACH Positive Pay, which we didn't have in the past. So basically what that is we have to set up parameters for every one of those automatic withdrawals that come out of our account. So even if it's been initiated by the district, we have to go in and approve it again a second time and say, yes, this is an approved amount to come out of the bank account. So it's just an added layer of security there so that money's not just coming out of the account without being approved several times. And then we also added the remote deposit check scanner. So that's been very helpful too. We just got that Friday, but to be able to just scan those checks and have those deposits done without going to the bank is very
You
nice.
want to explain that feature if you would?
The check scanner.
Right.
So we have a scanner there in the office. It's the same scanner when you go to the bank that the tellers use. We just put the checks in, put the amount of the deposit, and scan it, and it gives us a copy of all the checks. It also puts a little stamp on the back of each of the checks, and then we get a deposit slip and verification, and then we transmit it. And as soon as we transmit it, it shows as pending at the bank. So as soon as it's transmitted, if you go look at the pending transactions, they're already showing as pending. So it's very helpful. Just saves that trip to the bank because sometimes that can be a lengthy experience. Any other questions on the check register? Pages 21 and 23 are the credit card statement. Anybody have any questions on any of those charges? Page 24 is the AP aging summary, and I apologize, I'm not sure what has happened with the details, but they didn't make it in here again. So we'll go through some of the new ones, and then if you guys have any questions, just let me know. Candy's shirt tells, that was the masks. You'll see, it looks like Eric has one on right now. We ordered masks for all of the staff to use when they are not on calls in the station. Everybody has 2 masks so they can be washed and still have a mask. Let's see what else. Coal Camp Auto Parts is actually parts from the Windsor parts store. There was something that I think it was a gas cap that the ambulance needed when they were in Windsor, and they picked that up. Don's Truck Towing, that is towing a unit to Shelby's. Fidelity and Deposit Company of Maryland, that is that restitution amount that we received this last month. The first arriving is the dashboards you guys approved in the budget, one for each station. Roy's been working hard on getting that set up. This Gabriel Roeder Smith and Company is that logger study as far as costs, and the union is going to reimburse that cost. For the new board members, Image Trend, that is our patient care reporting software. That's an annual cost. Randall's Auto Collision, that is Unit 9's repair costs. We've been reimbursed a large majority of that, but the cost came in higher than was estimated, so we're waiting on the difference there. The Sand Small Engine, that is a portable generator we have in Windsor. It just had some maintenance done on it. UHS Premium Billing, that's the new health insurance. And Zeeler's Fire Ice Heating and Cooling, that was some repairs to the bay, one of the bay units. Any other questions on any of those bills? No, that is the end of that portion of my report.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, mine's not for Mrs. Newman, but she brought up that we bought these reusable masks. and they're washed. Now, Chief, do they have some sort of recommended life cycle to them? Like you can only wash them, 10 times and they get thin and they don't do what they're supposed to do, or?
No, not really. These have a little place you can actually put a higher efficiency filter in if you do want to use that purpose. We mainly use them just for around the station when we're not actually running calls. But no, they seem to be holding up pretty well.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the outstanding bills.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Medical director's report. Leave with us today. Dr. Guest not available today, so we're moving on to unfinished business. HRA HSA Bank Account.
Sorry, muted myself too quickly there. So with our new benefits, we have added the HRA like you guys approved. In doing that, this new company, New Synergy, it operates a little bit differently than Task did for the FSA and the HRA portions. We need to set up a separate bank account to have those funds come out so basically what we'll do is move those funds from the general checking account, each payroll, just like we did with Task. Task would take that money and move it over to Task. Now we'll move it to this other account. And then when employees use their FSA cards or when we reimburse an employee out of the HRA, those funds will come out of that account. So we have a little bit more control over those funds as they're still under our umbrella instead of at the vendor's account. So we will also move those HSA funds over there, but the HSA funds will go into the employees' HSA accounts each payroll. So the ones of you that approved bills, you were familiar with seeing Task come out each payroll, as well as Further. Further was the HSA, Task was the FSA independent care. So it'll be the same thing, it'll just be under our umbrella. And then what we'll also need to do is give me permission to move those funds from the general account to the HRA bank account. And just within those two accounts, that's the only two. And we'll still put that through bill.com to be approved by 2 board members, just like we have in the past. So there will be some approval there, but I just need some approval from the board to set that bank account up. And then we'll need the signers to go sign the paperwork as soon as that's approved.
Are there any questions? If not, I'll take a motion to set that account up.
So moved. And Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to share that time is kind of of the essence on this.
Do we have a second? I'll second. All in favor of setting the account up, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Thank you. I'll get Erica to get that paperwork ready, and then I'll text Mike and Nick and John Fritz as soon as that's ready for you guys to go by the bank and sign that.
Advanced board member training and meeting attendance policy. This is just informational.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This year, it's still believed that any member here that wants to go through the advanced board member training that will probably be offered after the April elections get underway. They generally bring that out, roll that out after that period. The second half of this business is whether or not the district or these board members here tonight are interested in amending our bylaws to reflect some sort of attendance policy of ourselves to board meetings. There are examples all across the state that are used with regard to numbers of meetings with just examples that I've identified is no more than missing, no board member can't miss more than 25% of their meetings a year, or more than 3 consecutive meetings, or in some of these folks that have, on the analyst districts, what they use is 60% over a 3-year period, and that would come out to, you have to, roughly divide out the numbers of 2 meetings a month. So I wanted to throw that out there because, as we know, that's been an issue with this board, and that, the message that I want is that we need everybody here, and that as elected officials, we chose this duty to represent a population in a very important endeavor. And to do that, we need to be here at meetings. We need to be informed. So my belief is that if anybody's interested, I'll go the time and we'll explore putting such into bylaws as a mere guideline for board members. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any further discussion on that? If not, we will move on to the digital packets for board meetings.
I had asked last meeting for you to consider going to digital instead of having the monthly paper. And so I just, it seems like a lot of paper that I use just quickly, and then I put it in a stack. And it just seems kind of wasteful to me, but, and I asked Ryan, I had first not accepted this, I don't even know what they're called, iPads. But I see now that I could probably use it for the digital thing, so. But unless everybody is in favor of it, I don't see any need to change anything.
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say, this discussion's been had, and it's, and for myself, I'll just speak that I was lucky that I straddled it where I got into understanding electronics and being able to use them to my benefit, and not to, to seize those that can't. It's just difficult. Some can't do it that way. So it doesn't work. It's a great idea. I'd be on board, but it's just it's a tough one to do just for a few. So, but yeah,
But I still like
paper.
Mr. Chairman, my question would be, real for Ryan, is there a way that we could actually do both? Let's say that John wants it electronically, and as slow as I am, I prefer the paper copy, so I want the paper copy. So you would know on the Friday, they're getting that, right? Friday packets. So you would know Friday, that you need the mail packets to me and Mr. Brown and everybody else. You can just send it electronically. Would that create a problem to do it that way? It would save a little bit on the reproduction piece of that.
And so it is per preference as to whether you want the back mail to, or you just want a digital copy and not have it mailed. But mostly the concern was any updates, or something changes on there, could we send those out digitally for you to have, so that way you're not being surprised with that.
Personally, for me, I think you need to have a cutoff date. And if it's, something at the last minute, like the, real estate, we can bring it up to meetings if we want to talk about it, I guess. But personally, I don't think it's a good idea to add anything to the agenda or updates after the packet's been dispersed, whether it be dispersed electronically or in the PDF. And of course, the person getting it electronically is gonna get it before the rest of us that want paperwork.
I believe part of Ryan's issue is the deadline for the post office.
Mhm.
To get the packet there, so we receive it on Saturday. If we did digitally, maybe wait till even 7 o'clock and send it out. And we would, well, we have right away. That is the main thing for him, is the time crunch. To get everything put together, put it in the packet. Get it posted on this.
Well, and my opinion of that would be is that issue starts here because we're the one, submitting things for the agenda. So we need to make sure that that gets to whoever it needs to get to first, but we want to have that on the agenda. And if the chief report, he just knows it's got to be ready by 3 o'clock, and if not, we talk about it the next meeting, I mean, it's, so in other words, to take off that pressure that Ryan knows that at 3 o'clock on that evening, it should all be ready to go. I like Mr. Mayor, I like the idea of having a choice. Yeah, so.
If I could just add, that's okay.
Yeah.
I know Ryan does spend a lot of time on them, and there is that crunch there. I don't see any problem with just letting me know. I know you mentioned before, Mr. Buckley, that you're okay with receiving digital, and if you want a digital copy, just let me know, and it's one less packet. So that's, if that makes you standard, just let me know.
Well, and this is getting a little bit off subject, but I know when we initially looked at finding someone, and it was, I think we talked about part-time, and now we've hired a full-time person. But part of that duties of that extra person was going to be to help prepare some of the things that Ryan's doing. So would that not take a little bit of the load off of Ryan as far as that timing issue?
Right.
And I mean, but that's a matter of coordinating between the administration, who does what duties.
Office will be changing here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Get her up to speed,
There you go.
just mostly, how are we going to get her up to speed? Who are we going to tell her to split? Mail some packets to her board members, and email packets to other board members.
Mhm.
So she'll be dedicated to doing that. If there having to be a correction or a mistake.
I'm okay with electronic. I'll take electronic.
I can certainly bring over some legal pads for notes or anybody who likes taking down notes on, I certainly got to have some scribble.
I have all kinds of.
Yeah.
Paper will show up in my education days.
Whatever makes it easier to.
Just leave the digital packets up to personal choice. See how it goes, and if it creates a problem, then the 2 ways, we'll just have to address it.
Thank you.
Bay windows discussion.
Yes, as you all might have known, they're budgeted for replacing the single pane windows on the front of headquarters, and then locking up the 3 remaining windows on the back side. As you recall, Triner did some work for the building. We had that bid out. Triner did an excellent job on blocking those up on the back end. Before the meeting, me and Mr. Brown looked at the building, and he concurs that the windows do need replaced, and that it's the right thing to do. So what I recommend, Mr. Chairman, is that we ask that the one would be submitted out for bid. And that on the 3 back windows, that we go ahead and contact Trinity Direct and have them just come return and give us a price on doing those that we agree upon. Instead of bidding out the back, since we did that and then before and had them do that work on the building, we're talking probably less than a couple $1,000. Maybe not even 1,000.
We got out there and did the demo like we did last time.
And that would be on just the blocking of the rear. That way there'd be no windows on the rear of the building. And we'd just like to give a blessing to put that away at this time. Say that we've taken a look at it, it's probably the right thing to do. Let's get it out. So,
Is there any further discussion?
For security, we typically have somebody in that building most of the time, but some folks could be, they could all be out. So by blocking up the back windows, that would enhance the security of the building, right? That's.
The ones we put in also, just to add on that, the insulated purposes, or the insulating qualities. Huge difference.
So is everyone good with putting a bid out for that?
yeah, we'll work together. We'll bring it back and make sure everybody good. We'll get it put out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll move on to new business. Mowing and snow removal bids.
So in your packet, I put a proposed ad for snow removal and bid specifications for snow removal. Mowing, we usually don't bid out till later, usually around March. I know there's a lot of companies that do both, but there's might not be anybody that wants to go to do that. So I tried to make it so that people could bid just for Pettis County locations or Windsor locations in those specifications. If you have any suggestions to make that clear, I'm open to that. It's hard to figure out how to word that exactly. And then Mr. Gerke had mentioned maybe putting this out for multiple years instead of just once, to save doing this every year. So that's what I have in here for the proposed bid specs and advertisement. We do need to get this out. We've already had a little bit of ice. We got lucky last time and didn't have too much on the roads anyways. There was plenty in the trees, but not too much on the pavement. So
Don't we have somebody under contract doing that snow removal now?
nope, we didn't. Nope, last year the crews did it, but it was a lot for the crews to make sure the snow is removed and run the calls and do all of the things, because as we all know, it happens overnight. So
I made sure it was previous. Yeah.
So is there any other discussion on the bid specifications? If not, I'd take a motion to approve those and get them sent out.
Would there be any benefit to putting them together? Lawn mowing and snow removal? There's companies out there that do both. And I guess that's the reason why I studied there for a minute, because I'm just thinking, what benefit would there be for them if they got the bid for both? Maybe it'd be.
In the past, some of the people that have won the mowing bid don't do snow.
Don't do.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, now that you say that, the ones we awarded out, I think we just mowing.
I mean, I don't have the snow removal, but the mowing, we get a lot of bids for that typically. It's pretty competitive.
I would so move then, Mr. Chairman, that we release the bid specs and advertise it out.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. 2021 election certification. And that's due on the 26th at 5 o'clock. And typically we just start the meeting at 4:30 and do that initially, and then Ryan can get it sent down there.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask a question. When do we have the information to certify? Does it come to us earlier that day or the week before, or when do we get it to certify?
We generally get it a couple days after the filing closes.
So we would get it the Thursday before. Okay, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, the reason why I asked this question is because I'm gonna be out of town that day, and it's gonna be difficult for me to get back at the normal time. And so I was just wondering if there was some way, if we got it before then. It seems to be just a non-event, approval process for us, that we would, just survey the board and say yes or no. I mean, is there an issue with that within our bylaws? But I do know I would not be able to be here at 4:30. Right.
Yeah, it has to be certified by 5 o'clock on the 26th. And I believe you guys have to take an actual vote. Ryan, does that have to be by roll call? Or is it just a regular vote?
So, Ryan,
Yes.
Ryan, is that something that could be done electronically?
Yes, we just have to get it has to be notarized before it goes down. So we just need the secretary and the chairman to be here, everybody else can log it remotely if needed.
Okay.
And then I can verify the signature, send it off.
I can be here.
But does it,
And if we did it sometime prior to that, we could do it.
you do it the day before?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have to be here an hour and a half early.
Yeah, that's right.
Anytime after it gets here.
As soon as we get the information, we'll send it out and everybody can reply, and John and I can come by and sign it when it's ready, and the next meeting can be at the regular time.
Can you explain to me as a newbie what it is we're approving? Slate of officers? or-
No, the slate of people that have filed for election, whoever that is at that time, we'll have that list for those districts, and then we approve that, and then it's turned into the county clerk.
So is there a reason that we would say we don't, that person can't do it? Or is it not people, it's just
The board approves that,
that it's okay to go ahead and put them on the ballot?
yes.
Any reason why we wouldn't put someone on there?
If for some reason they might not meet residency requirements, other requirements under the law.
But
I mean, that's been
Yeah,
determined well in advance.
sure.
It's a formality once again,
Okay.
it's just,
All right,
and it all comes back to the nature of what we do here and what this entity is, the quasi-governmental entity, is we're all on our own. We're a government on our own is what we are considered under the law. So we don't work for the city of Sedalia or Pettis County.
yeah,
We
that
are
in
it.
the training, yeah.
Yeah, so.
I think there's also, I know the election, the clerk checks for residency and location, where they live and taxes paid and all that good stuff, but they don't necessarily have information as to whether my mom signed up for the board or something to that effect. They might have to, it needs to be approved by the board just to make sure that they were not violating any of our own bylaws when it comes to applications. That's the way I understand it.
Okay, so I can use my brain at home, just bring my signature.
My mom's not signing up for the board.
Is there any other discussion? If not, we'll do it that way, and that Next meeting will start at regular time.
So just let me know when to come down here again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sales tax rate discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I asked to have that put on the agenda tonight. I think it behooves us as a board to at least analyze that on a regular basis or at least annually. And since we got the brand new year, this might be a good time to do that. And thinking about that, we've got, after we pay the bills, we got $2.8 million in the bank. We want to have adequate reserves. But, I think when we look at the number of months and weeks that we have reserves for, that's on a very worst case scenario where there's no money at all versus, the government stops paying or the people stop paying, but, the choice between our insurance companies stop paying. So that's a very worst case scenario. So that's the reason why I just think the board ought to consider, again, lowering the sales tax rate. And I just brought it up for discussion.
Is there any further discussion? Yes.
And us being our own little governmental agency, things like that, we're out here to make a profit, to be able to break even and get a little bit more. So you're shaking your head now.
But we're a nonprofit entity.
Okay, but I mean, obviously, we're making some profit to be able to boost our savings. Okay, to what point do we need to make a profit? How much? Having the reserve is a great idea. I mean, it's a sound business idea, but as it keeps growing up and up and up and up, the very few people are actually giving back to the citizens, cutting taxes or cutting responsibilities and things like that. And I think that would be behoove us. We're not talking about a tremendous amount of money. In fact, you'll probably never see it when they go to buy their car or pay their gasoline and things like this. People probably won't even recognize. And of course, I think there is a lot of concern about us spending money freely. When they look and they see, my God, you could have just got a van or something like that to take people to and from the hospital. How many times have you heard that, Chief? Good Lord. And, here we are spending $250,000 to have a vehicle to take them to and from the hospital. So people see that, they don't understand that. But if for some reason, if we move this back, just, 1/2 or 1% is what it could be, 1/2 or 5%, or what did you propose, John?
What we did last year was roll it back from 0.0050 to 0.0045.
Okay.
It was just a very minor decrease.
And that's, just to do it and to publicize that, to let people know that, hey, we are stewards of their money. We are watching, what we're spending on. It's, we did our budget, 2 weeks ago. We cut back a few things. It's good, sound, support for the public. I know there was there was some comments made. I, don't want the voters to find out how horrible we're doing. People, they love to hear that we're cutting back money. Now, they don't love to hear that we're cutting back services. We have a premier service here with PCAD. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, we are providing more than most of the ambulance districts around. We're not using a van to haul people to and from the hospital, but on the other hand, we're bringing the hospital to the people. And we're bringing some high-tech stuff, things that I never dreamt were going to be done. But at some point in time, some people will come up to our level, maybe, but I would say that the standard would be a lot lower than what we've got now. I think we go forward to go ahead and give some money back to the people. My opinion.
Is there any further discussion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I brought this to the table, and I guess at this point in time, I'd like to see us roll it back ever so slightly. There were some discussions, and in previous meetings about some community was told that once the ambulance district got up and running, that, that sales tax could sure enough be considered to be rolled back. When this was put in place, we had 3 or 4 ambulances that were funded completely from the services, no tax support at all. Now we have 12 ambulances and, over $6 million in generated revenue. I think that we've got to the position where we ought to be able to do this. So with that being said, I would move that we roll back the sales tax from the 0.0050 to 0.0045.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go on the record that this discussion about rolling back the sales tax is based on insufficient knowledge of the board members that would vote for this. Okay?
This is on the agenda as discussion.
Right, so
If we wanted to make a motion, which we obviously do, to roll back, it should be on the next agenda.
Okay.
It's an action item.
Okay.
So in that discussion, Mr. Chairman, it is recommended by those that have gone before us, and we are the youngest ambulance district in the state of Missouri, okay? 115 counties in this state, 114 of them, or 110, did this before we did and have done it for decades, okay? Now, those folks, and in the training that's required to get your salary here at PCAD, they explain to you that 6 to 9 months or 8 to 12 months is the recommended cash on hand to operate, okay? We're now just shy of 6 months, okay? We worked very hard at getting here, okay? That's our bucket of in case bad stuff happens. Last year, if anybody knows, I looked at the profit and loss statement. Our reimbursements, the money we get from insurance, not the sales tax, was down nearly 5%. So without you all considering those items and knowing those facts, I just think this is an erroneous message. This is a progressive tax that everybody comes through our community pays. It was a tax that we were blessed with, and we were told that you're blessed to use that tax. And we're not sitting here flushing with a bunch of profit, folks. Everybody in this room knows that we have some pretty big steep hills coming that aren't even included in this discussion. Okay, so Mr. Chairman, I move that we cease discussion about this.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I like your idea that we put it as an item of decision at the next meeting.
Additional discussion, Mr. Chairman. We as a board in the past have discussed the timing of this, okay? And this is not something that behooves this board. This discussion is required by state statute. Okay, we're required to do this once a year, okay? And we as a board have talked about this on 2 or 3 occasions. And we have always favored doing this discussion after election day. That in the event that we have a bunch of people running for election, this shall not be an issue to be discussed and become an election topic. That, I'll lower the sales tax when they don't know the financial situation of this district. That is not something I want to get this district into. This discussion should come after the April election. And we talked about that. And that's the end of my discussion, sir.
If we're gonna discuss it, I'm a newbie again. I don't know what hills you're talking about that.
It's stuff that we can talk about in closed session. We've spoken about it in closed session.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking
Thank
about.
you.
But that's,
That will change that number significantly.
that's still a question, big question mark.
Very big question mark for this district.
Any further discussion? We can include that in the next on the next agenda, discuss and then take action if necessary. And the last item is the 16th Street property lease agreement. In the little flyer we got, the back page, there's a contractor that requested to rent an area while they're doing the sidewalk project out there. And you can see where you pay. And they're gonna rent, keep their stuff down closer to the fire department. And if the board's agreeable, we can draw up an agreement between us and this company and have it for the next board meeting to approve and sign.
What's the downside to this, sir?
None. And
It doesn't screw up the lady trying to sell the property. That's the only downside I could even think of.
No, they're the ones that brought it to us, and he said it was neutral, and these folks think they'll need it 4 months, and they said typically, if somebody wanted to buy it, it'd probably take 6 months to close it anyway. So,
Mr. Chairman, the only concern that I had was making sure that the property was left in the same condition as it was when they took over.
that would be an agreement, they looked like they found it.
And if they if they're working for the state, I would think that they probably will be held to pretty high standards.
And they estimated like 10 pieces, like a couple skid steers, a mini excavator, so it would be a huge amount. So.
And, it could spark some interest.
That's right.
People see that, it could do that. And I gotta say, those people are very generous on their dollar amount. I mean, I've been in that business a lot of years, and typically it'd be a $250, $300 a month deal. So he's very generous. I think it's no brainer for us.
I think it's good too.
So if everybody's okay with that, we'll get something drawn up and
I think if they want to take some of the concrete with them when they.
That's been discussed.
They're being very generous.
so we'll get something drawn up and have it ready at the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Are there any announcements? I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So, second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 A little different than last. Time frame.
I want to say what that one had, you wore out.
We agree on a time for the early meeting for.
Within the mail.
So, get it done.
As soon as we get it.
I'll go bring it up next time and get mine out.
I think that's great too.
Well,